Good evening and welcome to the Pownal Elementary School Board Directors Meeting for Wednesday, December 17th. On the agenda, the first thing is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda, we're sorry to hear that Becky Giganto doesn't feel well, so we're going to introduce our ladies that are involved with the drama club.
So Clary DeRosia and Kathy Brooks are here tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening, everyone. This year, Clary and I decided that we would like to keep the drama club going on because this would be our 11th or 12th year. There is no after-school program, so it was all a volunteer. We went to Todd, asked him if we could do this, and it would have to be on a volunteer basis. So I wrote letters home and told the parents that they would have to pick up their children normal time like we've always in the past. I did get responses in the beginning of 14 students. That's half the amount of kids I usually have for the drama. We go anywhere as in the past, we've gone up to 38 children. So we extended it down to 3rd grade, even 2nd grade, and we're just making it for 18 people. It's the transportation situation. Parents, I even wrote a note saying that perhaps maybe you can carpool. So I think we're here for the board to include, to think about in the budget. If you would like, number one, if you want the drama club to still continue, transportation is vital for some of the kids, and relying on other parents isn't always advantageous. So we're hoping that when you do your budget in January, that you would consider having transportation, at least for our drama club, but even, I don't know what the situation is going to be for after-school programs for next year. So that's where we are right now. Our play is going to take place March 27th and 28th. It is Rats hyphen Pied Piper. We did this probably 9 years ago. We're bringing it back up because it was a play that the cast was smaller, so therefore we looked for a play that would be applicable to the students. And we will have Mr. Ray with us. Mr. Peterson is too busy now with the Old Castle and with teaching courses that he wasn't able to come this year. We do raise our money. We have a snack cart. We also held a raffle for a holiday food basket, which netted close to $300. The admission, the admission to our plays both nights, and also the selling of our baked goods. We're pretty self-sufficient over all these years. So we would like you to consider that in your budget.
How long does it normally run? 8 weeks, 12 weeks?
Well,
January.
we go from January to the end of March.
Do you have a ballpark of what the transportation is?
Money-wise,
Yes.
it's about 60 or 70 hours as far as what we meet here, and it's about $40 a run, approximately.
20-year run, so it'd be 40.
20?
Yeah.
So it'd be 40 for one day.
No, it would be 20 just for the one run. So we're talking, if it's 4 days a week,
Right, $80.
$80 a week
Right.
times how many weeks?
And it's only for one run to take them home, correct?
Right.
Take them home,
Yeah.
Yeah, just to take them home.
So,
And
yeah.
also, in the event that there aren't any loans or grants, we were always paid by the grant money or whatever. If this is going to be an after-school program that would be going, I'd also like you to consider some type of stipend or monies available for the people who are involved in the drama club. Because right now, the PTG did grant us a stipend for this year.
And how many is that usually?
It's just Clary and I, and perhaps we pay, from the monies we make, we fundraise, we pay for Mr. Ray.
Okay. So just,
So you're
And
talking 2 or
perhaps,
3.
and then we used to give some money to, like Mary, the art director, it would be a small stipend, and Carol, costumes, yes. So it would be actually 4 of us, because we pay from Mr. Ray.
all right, we start our
Thank you
budget, see
very
what we
much,
can do.
and have a merry,
Thank-
happy holiday. By the way,
Merry Christmas.
yes, and a Merry Christmas. And I want you to know that our Spirit of Sharing was very, very successful. And you have 90 children in our building who, and their family, 36 families, who will have something under the tree. And it
Very
was due
nice.
to everybody
Thank
in the
you.
community, faculty and staff, and people throughout the district. So, even central office. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
all you do for that drama club,
Yes,
because I
thank
know
you.
it's a lot of work.
You're welcome.
It's a lot of work and fine performances. Great job.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Great community event.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Okay. Is there any public comments? Hmm? Is there any public comments? All right,
I'm here about my son.
okay. We'll take you now.
It seems that there's a big lie going on in school somewhere about my son being a bully or being bullied. He got kicked out of school Thursday. The cops were called on him. They had him cornered into a room because they didn't give us a chance to get here to get him. But they say he's a bully. I don't understand where they're getting their information because the report card here said he's a pleasure to have me in class. Somebody's doing some lying here. My son being refused an education. I don't know what's going on, but somebody's got to figure it out. He's 9 years old. He's actually done better in this school than he ever had in any other school he's been in.
I appreciate that comment. I know,
But
so-
Mrs. Wilton, the teacher, is doing some lying, or the principal. I don't know who's doing lying, because right here, they wrote down he's a model student. Now all of a sudden, he's a bully. The kid's been backed into a corner by 2 different students this year. Mrs. Wilton, we sent her letters upon letters about it. Nothing been done. Not one thing. So I told him, if he get back in the corner too many more times, he can't take care of himself. I don't want that to escalate to that. You know my family. You know my boys. When they're in public, they like to raise heck. But when he's in school, he don't do it, because he don't want to get kicked out. He don't want to have to fight anybody. I don't know why the principal or Mrs. Wilton or whoever doing the lying doing it. But I want him back in school tomorrow. I don't want him out of school.
We'll figure out,
We went to school, we went to central office. They lied out there to the superintendent about it, because they didn't have the paperwork. I have the paperwork, I had the proof right here that he had a problem child. If I were calling state police on them, we were plowed in, we only live over here in Jackson Crossing Road. They plowed us in, we had trouble getting out. By the time they called, 32-second phone call from him. By the time they called, we got out and got here, 2 state police had them in the office in the corner. That's not right. The kid don't even want nothing to do with cops anymore.
Okay, well,
He's not sure he wants anything to do with the principal anymore. But he's done better here in this school than he has anywhere else.
that's
He's actually learned a lot.
good. Well, we appreciate you coming in and we'll see what we can do to straighten it out.
I mean, he's right there, if you think he's a liar, he'll tell you right to his, I mean, he's not lying, because I had to prove. But a 32-second phone call, dude, you could have given her more time than that. She asked you what was going on, I don't have to tell you and slam the phone down. She had it on speakerphone, so I heard it all.
Okay,
32 seconds, she asked what was going on, he said, I don't have to tell you. Slam the phone down.
Mr. Colkeen, there was a meeting the other day, and this is something that we're taking
Is this the
next
same meeting
steps.
that we had?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, but
what's
they didn't have the
still-
proof, I do.
Okay. I promise you that the discussion is not over, and we will
Apparently-
continue to
Apparently,
review it.
something's wrong because he's still not in school. And he's not the liar. I got the proof right here, dude.
Well, the meeting the other day, I know your wife requested a meeting and she would contact the superintendent to set
We
up that
called up
meeting.
north to have a mediator coming down to see why you guys called the cops on him. Because they know it shouldn't have been done. Attorney's office.
Did they give you a date for that mediation? Because we
No.
haven't been contacted.
Nope. But to have someone come down, the thing is, he should be in school and not being denied an education. He shouldn't be bullied in school
no, bullying's not.
by staff or children. Now, if I found out, never even told us you're bullying anybody, that's the sad part. Until this meeting went over to your office. His name was never brought up as a bully.
Well, we definitely will look into it more and we'll definitely get back to you, sir. We need to,
So in other words, I
Talk
guess
about it.
he's still not gonna be in school for a while, but
Again,
Something
Mr.
gotta be done for his
Again, Mr.
education.
Colkeen, would you want to comment about the educational piece to that was offered to the
Yeah.
no,
family and the
no,
child?
step program and stuff like that. This kid is being punished, you wanna punish him for not doing nothing. No, that's not an option. You punish somebody when they do something wrong, not when they don't do something wrong. You punish the principal, you punish the teacher, whatever.
Because of the students here involved, I'm very uncomfortable continuing this
Exactly.
discussion in a
Yeah,
public session,
exactly.
other than to say that we hear your concerns and we will
we
continue
will
to meet.
continue discussing it, sir.
But you're not gonna punish him for something he didn't do.
I know, well, we appreciate you coming in and we understand what you're saying, so we need time to sit down with the superintendent and the principal and find out what was going on. And we definitely will get back to
What
you.
do you think? Fair?
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
And I say you, is it fair?
Okay, next item on the agenda is the action item, the financial treasurer's report. This is for October and November. If you notice, you got a corrected October report, and the total for the fund balance should read $170,548. Does everyone have that paper?
Yep.
All right, is there any discussion on that?
No, so moved.
Okay, need a motion and a second. Motion's been made, I need a second.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Okay. And we have the consent agenda, I need a motion,
So moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, all copacetic. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. All right, we have no policies. And we'll go right down to the principal's report on the playground grant.
Yes. Unfortunately, we did not receive the playground grant for the outdoor classroom that our committee worked really hard to apply, and We were not granted any money for the playground grant. Now, I understand Bill Botso's here this evening.
Could I come up?
Yes.
I can't hear a word anybody's saying.
Sure.
Talking out
Come on up.
quietly. So-
You had mentioned earlier, I just had said that the playground grant, that we did not receive
Oh, okay.
funding for that grant. So I was
Okay.
wondering if you could comment a little, because you had mentioned something earlier.
And I think you also did the right thing, is you wrote to ask for comments, which you have not received yet.
Correct.
But, okay. What I have to add to it is that yesterday was the grant award ceremonies in that category in Montpelier, and I had a chance to catch up with the administrator of the program and the chair of the committee and ask them if they could give me a little bit more detail as to actually why. And I think it might be a little early to say totally why, but I did hear that their main criteria that they ask for is that when there's an application, that it is, the major thrust of it is that it serves the whole town, and that schools are perfectly good to apply. And I think that this is the recreation center for the town. This is where people go, and there may be a possibility, and I'm promising it, because they had a little they held back a little money in the category that they still have it. There may be a possibility to rewrite and reapply, making it much clearer how much of a recreation de facto center for Pownal it is here with all of those fields, and how this would take care of both the need, the replacement part, and augment it, move forward. And that's basically what I wanted to pass on. I think we should find out what that information is, and then make a determination whether, on the basis of that, because there may be other things.
Right.
That they weren't looking at the paper and looking at their notes when they talked to me. It was just in a general, not a specific comment. And then look at it and see if it looks like there's a decent chance and it's worth doing it. And all of that is on a rolling deadline. You wouldn't have to wait until all the next year. I believe they would look at it in a more timely fashion than that, because that money category goes until, oh, I guess it's May 30th or something, and it makes sense for them to use it. Yeah.
Well, I do know the community uses the playground as well as the students.
Absolutely, not only them,
On the
but
weekend,
Head
I've
Start
seen-
uses it, and the folks over here at Oak Hill use it after hours, all of that. And it may just be a matter of making that much more clearer, and how that's an important need for the community. And in so doing, the other goals are taken care of too. So I know you included in the things like the tennis court and
Right.
stuff that you wanted to do, which is, we don't have a tennis team at this point.
No, but we have community members who are calling,
All the
they've been
time.
calling all of us and asking, when are we going to
Yeah.
be able to use the tennis court
Yeah.
again? And I do believe that the town said that they would, if we could get a grant, they would be willing to help us with the
Well,
tennis
All
court.
of those things would make the application a lot stronger to somebody who doesn't know that information. So I think, we put ourselves in the shoes of the person who's looking at them, and for all the categories out there, and we put out, and that there is that level of support and interest. Maybe that'll do it. I don't want to go past maybe until I learn more, but I do think try again, and, it's always worth, and I really.
Has the
commend
funding cycle ended for
people.
this year?
I'm sorry.
Has the funding cycle ended for this year, or will there be
No.
another round?
No.
It's open.
No, there's no round.
Okay.
The panels on all the building community grants meet basically at a certain point.
Mhm.
And if they don't spend any of the money, then they take them on a first-come, first-served basis.
But there was a deadline to apply.
Okay.
So met the original, that's the deadline for when the panel comes together. But I did find out that they've held back a decent amount that could be worthwhile.
As you learn more, keep me in the loop, and we'll take a look at what we've written and see
Yes.
what we could do to improve, and I'm still looking for comments from
Yes.
Chrissy. Thank you.
And I'd be happy to look at, I've reviewed a lot of these grants because of the economic development category. I know how they work, I know what people look for, and be happy to look at the whole thing, and not just the description paragraph, but you know, how we characterized it, how we set it up. I'd give us, you know, you gotta try.
See, I'm
It's
kind
good.
of confused. I know at one point we talked about the tennis courts, but when you wrote for the grant, was it strictly for the playground in the school?
No, I included the
Include
tennis
the
grants.
tennis? Oh, okay, all right.
There's a piece to the grant where they say if a lesser amount is granted, would you take a look at that piece? And that's when I had mentioned we would keep the playground, the outdoor playground piece in, and not include the tennis courts, because they're, you know, would you accept a lesser
A
amount?
lesser
Well,
amount,
of
I
course we
see.
would, but you know, depending upon how they looked at that piece.
I think the main thing is putting up right up front, clear, the priority is serving the recreational needs of the town, and here's how we're going to do it. You know, rather than the recreational needs of the school, and this is how we're gonna do it. They end up being the same thing.
Right.
That might, it's just a matter of making it a little more competitive,
Right,
not changing so much what would actually happen.
right.
But anyway, that sounded a little bit promising, and I'm glad I
Okay.
had the opportunity to
Yep.
ask.
Let's
and
keep us
we'll
in
see where we
touch
can go
and-
with it.
I want to thank the playground committee that worked on that. Grants are sometimes very difficult to write and very time consuming, and we did spend a lot of time on writing that grant, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate you taking all of that time, and
Yeah.
hopefully the next round would be a lot less time in doing it too. Okay,
Well, beneficial time, yes.
okay.
Thank you.
Anything else that you, for the moment?
No,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice to
appreciate
see
it. And you had a happy holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Is that all you have?
That's all I have. I know this evening at 7 o'clock, we have our band and chorus concert, so afterwards, you're welcome to join the folks downstairs.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Our holiday meal yesterday, we served quite a few folks, just like we did at the Thanksgiving meal, and we had a great turnout yesterday, so.
Oh, good. Okay. Under my report, I have the issue of our purchasing of our bus.
I'm going to address that under my report too, so if we could merge it right now if you
Why
want.
don't we merge it?
Yeah. I think we might want to ask Bill to join us again.
Bill?
Bill,
Okay.
would you
join
mind
us?
coming up again? Because I want you to hear what I'm going to tell the board from what I'm hearing from the Agency of Education on your bus issue. So we can move forward with your RFP to buy a bus, but I want to caution you, give you a little time to read this memo that came from the, do we have one that Bill could see? From the Secretary of Education, informing me that when I called and had a discussion with them, they're telling me that here in Pownal, we're out of compliance with the transportation issue, because we don't have a waiver that we're not doing transportation through the supervisory union. So what this says is that all transportation has to be contracted through the supervisory union. Doesn't mean the same vendor for all the supervisory union, it could be different vendors. So I said, all right, well, what's at risk here? What's at risk if Pownal continues to operate their own buses? And they said that was a good question, and the Secretary of Education and the Agency of Education attorneys are reviewing that. But what would be ultimately at risk is your transportation reimbursement, which we think is about 41%, is that?
Budget is 64.
64%, okay.
64,000.
64,000. So that's what would be at risk for, that's your reimbursement for transportation. So I asked about this waiver process. What do I have to do? If, all right, Pownal wants to do their own transportation. I don't have an objection to it. I'll request the waiver. The request for the waiver has to come from the superintendent. The answer to me is I have to demonstrate that it is a savings to Pownal, but it also has to be a savings to the supervisory union. So, because the act that was, the law that was enacted is supposed to save everybody money. So if you operate on your own, is causing the supervisory union to spend more, and I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. then they said they will not grant the waiver. So, Jim and I were talking today, and we'll talk round number examples. Let's say our transportation costs are, what did we use an example, 1.0? I thought it was one, so if it was $2 million is like our transportation, and you're like 200,000, let's use that. And if we went out to bid and it included Pownal, and the bid price dropped, then there would be no demonstrated savings, because like say there's I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but there would be no economy in scale if Pownal was spun off onto their own. Then the Agency of Education is telling me they won't grant a waiver. So I just bring this to your attention to caution you as you purchase a bus. I don't know how vigilant the Agency of Education is going to be that we're operating without a waiver. And for us to apply for the waiver, we're going to have to do really some more research to demonstrate that there is a saving. You all feel that it's cheaper for you to operate your own buses.
It is.
That's the assumption we're going on.
It is,
This-
much cheaper.
Yeah, and the
Not an
stickler.
assumption.
The stickler is this line that the efficiency of transportation services is to be evaluated from the perspective of the supervisory union as a whole and not from the perspective of individual districts. And that's the rub. So I know I'm the bearer of not the greatest news tonight, and I'm not saying anything is final and etched in stone. I just don't have a solid answer for you as we sit here tonight and you're contemplating going out for a purchase to buy a bus, that if the state came in and said, well, then you're no longer eligible for transportation reimbursement, you might be selling that bus. And that's
Okay,
deeper discussion than we're gonna have
Let me try
tonight.
to understand this, all right? You said that central office has to deal with all the transportation. Are you telling this board that we own our own buses, we have our own bus drivers for all these years, that all of a sudden central office is gonna tell us who's going to transport our children?
Well, I don't see it as the central office, I'm seeing it as the Agency of Education.
'Cause I'll tell you right
dealing
now-
on I don't know when, it says this was the Act 153 of 2010, and it was amended of July 1, 2014.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
I
We
could
have
understand why you would feel that way,
We
yeah.
have wonderful bus drivers. We have to thank the community for supporting all these years of purchasing, helping us purchase our own buses, okay? And now all of a sudden, we're gonna be told that some other unit who doesn't have time to come to Pownal, there's a lot of things.
You have to read that first sentence in there, which.
I don't care what this says. Bill, help us out here. What
So
does Act 153 mean?
they have offered to come to a meeting and discuss this with you.
Who does?
The gentleman who signed this letter at the bottom, his name is Vaughn Altimus, and he is, I don't know what his title is, but he's in charge of transportation services for the Agency of Education, and that's the gentleman I've been in contact with. So what, the challenge for us is to demonstrate, in writing, on the spreadsheet, whatever, where the you can't just say it's cheaper. You gotta show me that there's a
shouldn't be-
savings.
That shouldn't be a problem from central office to help us figure out what we're saving. I mean, the dollar figures are there.
Right.
They can come up with it. This is political.
Yes.
Bill, help us out.
Well, I think the other part of the equation is pretty simple, is to demonstrate that for the overall whole, in this particular case,
Mhm.
that the savings to the supervisory union are equal or less.
Mhm.
And I think until you do that and see if there is a way that makes sense, you can go around and around and all the other pieces. It seems to me that's the piece that I don't know or understand how it would be, because it would have to be that your transportation here was either bid out or folded in or whatever those dollars would look like. But one might find in actually doing that, the actual cost, because somebody would either have to buy equipment or do all sorts of factors that we aren't talking about right now, might make it actually not a good financial move. Because I think everybody's because it is a statewide property tax, is that everybody accepts the fact that we want to, control overall costs. But I don't think you want this sort of counterintuitive disincentive to finding costs. I think you're trying to say is that we're doing the best we can and have traditionally and always done it to control these particular costs, because otherwise it could well cost more for everybody. And
Guaranteed.
so that's what it hinges on, is the
Guaranteed.
desire of everybody to control the statewide property tax, together.
So-
And I can see, you talked about economy of scale. That's a word, but we don't know if it exists or does not
Right.
exist.
Right.
I think you need to figure that piece out in order to have the conversation.
Like we would, and I'm just talking off the top of my head here as this is unfolding. I mean, we'd almost have to look at what a bid process would look like that included Pownal. Put out a request for proposal, see what a bus company would bid on what that was, and does that reduce the overall cost to everybody in the supervisory union? If it didn't, then you're eligible for a waiver, is my understanding. The other thing that they said that is possible is the supervisory union, if this is saying the supervisory union is supposed to be responsible for transportation, it doesn't prevent the supervisory union from contracting with your provider to be the bus company that provides transportation. But
Or to
I really don't know how that would work,
Or even to delegate that,
to delegate that,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you
Joel?
have
This is a
that
new
power
law,
or
right?
not? And that could be a discussion.
This is a relatively new law.
This was,
That's why it's never come up before.
yeah, July 1.
So somehow they found out, by us trying to buy a bus, they found out that we weren't in
No
compliance.
kidding.
So,
I wouldn't want to speculate on that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's
what-
what happened, right?
All right,
But
Joel wants to
They
speak.
do put that out for bid as a comparison every 5 years, am I right?
Yeah, it did,
I
yes,
don't
they
know,
did.
yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
and we were always cheaper
Yes,
than they could do it for even a starter. You put it out for bid, and say the company we have now wants to bid in for Pownal. It's a given they're gonna bid way cheap for a
Low
year or
bid,
two,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's gonna go when our buses are gone.
Yeah.
Other districts like Arlington still run their own buses. Manchester still runs their own buses. It doesn't seem to be an issue. Why is it an
The difference
issue here?
for Arlington and Manchester, from my understanding, is that they are their own supervisory union.
They're
so-
in a different
Right, different,
supervisory.
right. So,
Our stumbling block is the SVSU.
sounds like it.
They,
well, I think your stumbling block is, and we need to do more research on what this loss is, because if it is saying that it's savings for the whole, not just savings for the individual district, that's gonna be an issue. But I'm glad that you're here tonight, that, maybe you can help me
Nice, I'm
with
not
this.
sure I am, but I'm happy to call this guy or try to always, do whatever I
And
can.
he offered to come to your next meeting. He said, let me explain it to them, and so.
But-
if
but-
you-
There may also be an
Yeah.
issue in this that even if the Pownal is able to have their own bus system and everything, it's really under the budget of the SVSU.
Right.
That the employees would be under SVSU, that's something that needs to be cleared up, that the maintenance and everything else is under the SVSU budget.
And that's what I think he meant by the SVSU could possibly contract with Pownal to provide the buses for Pownal. But I don't know what that looks like yet. But I know you wanted that RFP, and I wanted you to hear this first, and I don't know how desperate and quick you are to buy that bus, or do you want to delay it a little until we can dig into this a little bit more?
I think, well, I think we can delay it, but I'll tell you now, this,
Oh, I know how you feel about this guy.
people in this town will not, I know my phone will ring off the wall. They will not go with another bus company.
And I hear how you like the flexibility that you have with this, you like the availability for field trips and all.
It's
I
not just
hear all of that.
availability, it's
Yeah.
not just the availability, I mean, board members, speak up. It is always been our buses, the town bought the buses for us. We have wonderful, dependable drivers. You can talk to our road foreman. The only accidents that's ever been in this town concerning buses has been other bus companies, never Pownal,
we have a
Never.
good record.
Excellent record.
Number one, they cannot do it as cheap as we can as a municipality. Taxes, we don't pay taxes on parts, fuel. They're $300-400 a piece on registrations, ours is $0. I mean, there's just so much. Our insurance rates, you should know all this.
Yep,
are
because you're buying
way
bulk
cheaper
insurance, yeah.
because, as far as, we have our own drug and alcohol, we never had a problem versus, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot to it that,
There's more than what
Yeah.
meets the eye, too.
I think
Yeah.
there's going to be no difficulty, you know, proving that maybe it's equal or cheaper than what it would be if you had a vendor. Understanding that you might get a lowball bid the first few years. The
Guaranteed.
challenge is going to be what it does to the whole, and that's what Agency of Education is stressing to me. And I don't have that answer sitting
Bill?
here tonight.
Maybe it's just the way I am, but I would take this and I'd try to turn it around. And I would say, first there's the shock of, oh my God, somebody's, imposing a condition on us that is first unwelcome and it may be negative. That's obviously you're starting to.
Guaranteed.
But it could well be that in the case of here, and a lot of it I think has to do with the fact that you're bordered up by Massachusetts and New York, and how do you serve an area like this, and how do school bus routes work, that this is a best practice. And make the case that actually, in terms of your policy, the best practice for here, and maybe even for some other places, is to follow the model that you've developed. And I think if you make the case proactively that way, backed up by numbers and facts, such as what you say, then you're putting yourself in a position of you're not just trying to solve your problem, but you're trying to solve the bigger problem as well. And I think that would open people's ears up to the idea rather than it being merely about, like you say, political or power or something like that.
Political.
I'm not sure it entirely is.
Well,
Because in other parts of the states and other districts, things play out very differently. It's certainly not political about trying to impose something particularly on a particular place with a particular name. People just can't think in that level of detail when they come up with an overall policy.
well, whatever you can do to help us with this Act 153, so we can keep our own buses and our own drivers, I would appreciate it.
And I will still be following up on this,
Okay.
and
I'm not throwing you under the bus. I just want you to
no,
know how
and
I feel.
I know what your desires, and then the challenge for us is, and I think Bill's point is very well made, because they did give to me an example that, a waiver could be actually, instead of bordered by New York and Massachusetts and mountains, they used the community that's isolated by that one bridge that, and they, rather than running a bus company down over that bridge, they'd let that community in its isolation operate its own bus service.
Right.
So it's not transversing back and forth. That's the example that they gave to me, so
Not
I
too
think
different.
anything's possible, but we're gonna keep pursuing that, all right? Because
Good.
I know
And
what your
we're-
desire is,
We're
and,
willing to hold off, if
Yeah.
it's a month or two. It's not a big deal. We probably didn't figure we'd have our new bus much before the beginning of
Yeah.
next year
Yeah.
anyways.
yeah.
But I think we should look at every avenue that we possibly can in a positive way to maintain what we have right now.
I think it'll get decided on the facts, and it sounds like the facts are potentially very favorable.
Yeah.
So let's see if that's
You
true.
wanna look at just, not to interrupt you, but the idea of us getting a small bus would be, initially, it's costing us $100,000 a year to transport 3 students with a contract company. We just took one back, so we're still at, 64 or something like that for 2 children going to Bennington. And, the savings in the first year, and after that, we could do it ourselves for, you save a third anyhow, or, I'm sorry, 2/3. We could do it for a third of what it's costing us.
Well, it sounds like the SVSU wants to work with the town on this and get all that down on paper and make sure that actually different people look at it and verify it and
And that,
Now that
build
we're in the budget
consensus.
time, I think is a good time, we can sit down and have Joel come to one of the budget meetings.
Yes.
And we can start working up the numbers.
Yeah.
But it's gonna take not just what's in the budget, but like Joel said, there's other factors and costs that may be involved.
Mhm.
And we have to just make sure that we're putting it together the same way that the state wants to see it. Do they wanna just see the transportation, or can we add in the extra transportation for other services that we have to contract out for?
right, that is that unknown,
Mhm.
but that's not just the to and from school, it's the
Oh,
other
yeah, we need to,
special
we need to paint the whole
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah,
Right.
all right.
Do you want the guy to come down?
Personally, I don't think so.
Well, he might,
Yeah?
I think it might help, if
If he
he's
comes
willing to
down
come.
with an
he
open
sh-
mind,
yeah.
I don't want him to come down and say, well, this
He-
is it.
You heard the example he gave me on the phone about the bridge and the isolated town, so I find that encouraging, so
All right.
I think.
More than a bridge, but not much.
Yeah, I think the more we talk to people, and and with the agency education, I don't think any harm can come from having him here. It's not gonna make it any worse, so.
Well, then I would suggest that Joel, you return when he's here, and you,
Yeah,
and
I will-
Bill, if you can come.
I will see if he can attend your January meeting. He offered.
I'll see if I can, have to work all day up there and get here and get back and work, so.
Right, because you'll be in
Right, you'll
session.
be
Let me put
session.
it this way, if it's necessary, I'll find a way. If it is not totally necessary, I will still find a way to communicate with the gentleman
Mhm.
and with you and with Frank, but
Mm.
it sounds like you've got a good team approach in terms of what you want to do. It doesn't sound like there's much dissent at this level. I think it's a matter of informing them and get them the facts, and if the facts don't bear it out, then that's a different issue. But from everything I hear, the facts bear out that it would be a savings
For Pownal for sure,
overall, for
whether
Pownal
it'll
for
be
sure,
overall,
and,
yeah.
and quite possibly overall, considering the alternative of what would happen, you know, because to make that change would be very expensive.
It'd be very expensive, plus people would be losing their jobs. All the bus drivers here are not gonna go work for the other bus company, guarantee you
Yeah.
that.
There's lots of factors, and I think getting
Lot
it
of
down will
factors.
make it a lot
Exactly.
easier for
And
me
you
to
got
have the
pairs on the
conversation.
bus, never mind all the money that we just put in for
Yep.
cameras
Cameras.
and.
You know?
Yes, and other.
You know, when we did the school bus inspection piece, the big difference was when you provided me with, this is, to convince that particular committee, is that this is what it was costing, this change cost this amount, people say like, oh, we don't want to do that. You know, and that's just the way it works. So let's get that piece of it done.
All right, so I guess we will schedule this gentleman for our next board meeting.
I will call him tomorrow
Okay.
and tell him how you're eagerly awaiting his
Oh,
appearance.
and eager, yes,
No, I'm glad I came, thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Eagerly awaiting.
Okay. So, this, yeah, and all the extra, are those extra
Yeah,
letters
extra.
down there
I got it right
from
here.
the, okay, thanks, yep.
No, I
Thank
got
you,
it.
Joel, for coming in.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Joel.
See you
So
next
the
month.
second part of my report, last month I was here and I gave you the situational analysis of public education in Vermont. And I said, these are statewide statistics which by themselves can be meaningless. And I said I would come back with, what does it look like here in Pownal? So if Todd doesn't mind being my clicker. There. So this slide you saw last month, you'll see that, you know, the FTE, the cost, the current expenditure per FTE is escalating. Next slide. So in Pownal, 10 years ago, you were spending $8,028 per pupil. This year, you're spending $13,400, really this school year, $13,497. And you can see as far as rank in the state in spending, you've dropped just a little, but you're pretty consistent with where the state is. Next. And the average daily attendance, we said last month, is dropping in Vermont. In 1997, there was over 100,000 students in Vermont. Now we're down under 80,000. Next. What's happened in Pownal in that time period? Been pretty stable. If you go to the next slide. your average daily membership was at 285 in the 03-04 school year. Last year's school year at 274. So compared to other schools in Vermont, pretty stable. The other thing that we learned last month is that teachers and paraeducators, even with the decline in enrollment in Vermont, the numbers remain stable. What's happened here in Pownal? Next slide. Now, this doesn't count any teachers who are employees from the supervisory union, like special ed teachers, but you can see in that same period, your numbers have remained fairly stable. Next. And your paraeducators, the same thing. So, but your numbers remain stable, so that makes sense as we look at this. When we looked at what the Vermont state trend is, we had student numbers declining, yet teachers staying stable. It looks like, you know,
Right.
you're not you're not replicating,
Right.
you're not a mirror of what's going on in the state.
Yep.
Next. So, student-teacher ratios in the state of Vermont are also declining. It's the lowest in New England. It was 9.9. That's the statewide average in Pownal. If you look at the next slide, it is higher. Now remember, this is not this is not student-teacher ratio. This is not classroom size. Let me say that, right? If you walked into a classroom here at Pownal Elementary School, you would not see classes of 13 kids. This is any certified licensed teacher in your building gets into this count, and that's why, so it's actually lower than your classroom size. But you can see you are above the state average, so some would argue that's a good thing. Average teacher salaries, we learned last month, the state of Vermont, second lowest in New England. It's $52,000. What's the average teacher salary in Pownal? In 2006, 2007 it was $53,000, 2013, 2014, $56,000. Now let me give you a caution on this. I don't get too excited about average teacher salaries because there are variables that can change it dramatically. Like I'll give you an example. I gave this presentation in Bennington, and the average teacher salary at Bennington Elementary School is less now than it was in 2006, 2007. What probably caused that?
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, senior teachers who have retired or left, teachers who are at the far end of the scale and with advanced degrees have retired, and younger teachers have been hired in that time period. So that's usually what the dynamic that you see in effect here. So not a lot of growth in that time period, but you know this building better than I do. That could be also impacted that you had some senior teachers leave during that time period
Not
too.
many.
Retired. Not many. Okay.
No, they stayed, which is good.
That's because they like it here.
I know, they like the board.
Yeah. And the buses.
And the buses, yeah.
Next slide. Okay, so free reduced lunch in Vermont is escalating in the same time period. So what's happened here in Pownal with your free and reduced lunch rate? It's actually, Todd? We would consider that statistically stable, but it's dropped a little in that time period. So, you know, of all the schools that I've been looking at in the supervisory union, you are one of the more stable in all categories.
Thank you.
Next is, oh, that's it. So that completes, I told you I would come back this month
Yes, and
with
this is-
what it looked like
This is
locally.
extremely helpful.
Yeah.
This is very good to know this, to see it. We haven't seen it, obviously, in 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know.
And if
I've
you
seen
really,
it.
you know, all of these statistics are on the Agency of Education website. If you want to, you know, spend a snowstorm night sitting there on your computer, you can go through and you can look by year. And reason why the years aren't consistent on some things, like some goes back further than other, it's just not, the reports start to change at certain years. So some it's 2006 I can only go back to, some I could go back to 2003, but it's all there and then some. There's even more. I mean, we could break down to you know, special ed population rates and all of that. But this is the Pownal version of what the state numbers I showed you last month, and that's all I got tonight.
Well, thank you, that's very good.
Pluses and statistics. So.
Yeah. Very good, I appreciate it. I think that's very helpful to see that. Now, somewhere I got a notification that our Pownal board meeting is gonna be on the 14th. Did I see that somewhere? That's never been on well, that is a Wednesday. Okay, I got the wrong calendar.
The next one should be the 21st, right? In January?
Usually it's
Oh, it's
the third Wednesday.
Oh, okay, see, I got a new calendar, I don't like it.
This is
Yeah, that's
December.
Is the stick in
December,
it?
Yeah, we get it.
Okay,
All right, yes, it will be the 21st.
yeah. And you need some
Yeah.
finance budget meeting, or,
Okay, we're in a busy
Yes.
season now, so we need to catch up a couple days here. So we have some delegates from the board that are at the SVSU meetings that are looking over now the special education costs that are within the Pownal School District. The one thing I'd like to see, because there isn't really a Pownal Finance Committee, so you guys are the full Finance Committee, to somehow set up a board meeting that could happen within the next couple of weeks to look over the SVSU portion of the cost for Pownal. The two dates that I see available that we could do it mixed in with all the other districts is either next Tuesday, the 23rd, or January 6th. They're both Tuesdays. At the same time, we've got to just set in there for budget time for the regular budget here. So incorporated in by January 6th, we're also going to have some numbers that's for the school district itself. So I thought maybe we could put those together. But the first meeting would be just Wendy from special education coming in and going over the special education costs.
On the 6th, Tuesday the 6th?
It would either be the 23rd or Tuesday the 6th.
Not the 23rd.
Okay.
we predicted you were gonna say that, so.
Yeah, 23rd's not too
Didn't we
good.
have some, like 3 days that you had?
Well, I checked on the other dates and they're
January
kind of
6th,
filled up with
January
other
6th.
districts and items, SVSU.
Tuesdays I'm not available in the evening, but I'll have to. think
Yeah.
of-
It's a Tuesday?
Thank you very much.
5:30?
At the earliest you can do it. I know that there's gotta be possibly another meeting on the 13th, which is an SVSU meeting on
That's
this,
a
at
risk.
7. So I
7.
thought maybe it could be something early to kind of just ease into it, with the final meeting being on the 20th to hopefully finalize it so that before the end of the month.
Okay, what's the time frame, folks? What's the earliest you can get here?
It does, anytime after 2 for me. You have to work till 5, right?
5, yeah.
Get to work till 5? Okay.
We can't do Tuesdays.
I can't do Tuesdays, I could do like a 7 o'clock.
On Tuesday?
That works for me too.
I have commitments on Tuesday nights, for the next few months, but, that's earlier in the evening, I could meet later.
So on, what are we looking at, January 6th at 7, does that work?
We can.
Okay.
Is that okay, guys? 7 on January 6th. Okay, that's a Tuesday. And then the 13th is SVSU at 7, so if we need to meet, we need to meet at 5:30,
Mm-hmm.
even for an hour.
So do they all have to be Tuesdays at this point?
Yes, because I think last year we had the schedule of Tuesday and the other districts are scheduled in the other days.
The other
and
days, yeah.
I want to make sure that Rick's involved with these here also. So the 6th would be or the next one would be a preliminary meeting that would be into the Pownal budget itself.
Pownal budget.
So we could do that one early. I can go over everything with the board. I can go over items with you at a separate time, Todd, but we're gonna invite you up to central office to go from.
Right, we do that every.
Beforehand. And then we could do another one on the next week, which is the 20th at the 7 o'clock, to see if we can finalize the
Yeah,
whole thing.
'cause we really need Todd
Mhm.
here.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
So we're looking at January 6th at 7 PM, and what was the middle date that we
The
had?
13th.
The 13th at 5:30?
5:30, and then the 20th at 7 o'clock.
I better go home and write this down.
And, because the 13th is the SVSU meeting, right?
Yes.
So, and that'll be at the
7.
middle school, so, all right. So the 5:30 meeting on the 13th, how long do you think that will be so that we can still get the SU for 7?
Well, we
It's
have to make
preliminary.
it just an hour.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
we need time to get up to.
I mean, hopefully I can have numbers for the 6th that you can look over, and then we can review it, so yes, probably an hour.
Are you invited? It would be easier to invite
When?
for that.
For the 13th? Oh, I don't care.
I didn't hear what you said.
I could do 5 in Bennington.
I'm like, we're all in Bennington, would it be easier if we met in Bennington?
We could meet at central office.
Mm-hmm, that's fine.
And then she said she could do earlier. Is that all right with you over there, honey?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess it doesn't work.
Okay.
yeah, I'm not in Bennington.
No, you're not in Bennington, but can you come to Bennington?
No, I don't think I want to, no.
All right. But there's 3 of us, so. It's just that at 7 o'clock I have to be at SVSU.
I understand this,
Yep.
but that's not the point.
Would that be the one on the 20th only, or all the other?
No, I think we're just talking
Just
the
the
13th.
13th.
I mean, the 13th, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that everybody could then get to those that need to go to the SU meeting.
Yeah,
So just on the 13th at 5 o'clock then?
yeah, I would just leave it at 5 o'clock on the 13th. I'm sorry, Doug, but that's,
Can you meet at 5 or 5:30?
5 in Bennington, if we're in Bennington, I can meet
At
at
central
in
office?
Bennington.
central office. And we'll get the information to you, Doug. Okay, so the 6th and the 7th here. The 13th is in central office at 5, and the 20th is 7 o'clock here.
Yeah.
All right, just so we know whether we're coming or going.
I'll have someone send out an email
Okay,
confirming all those.
And Mary Lee will warn them all.
Yep.
yes, and then I'll let Jim O'Connor know too.
Yes, and then I have Todd tentatively meeting with Wendy this Monday during the day, just to have them review it before she comes to the board, just to make sure everything's in line,
Okay, sounds good,
okay?
thank you. Do you have anything else? No? Okay. FYI, we have our budget status report, and we also have the student enrollment for December. Is there any other business to come before the board?
Need to have an executive session on the student matter.
Yeah, I could stay a few minutes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, we'll dismiss the board, we'll just move into executive session for, the student matter.
And then to adjourn.
And then
No
to
action
adjourn.
taken.
No action taken. Thank you, and appreciate, and you have a nice holiday.